Yo, what's up? It's your boy Will Nicholls coming to you from Mars. This is the Mars retrograde forecast. We're going to look at the transits. We're going to look at the charts of Mars retrograde, talk a little bit about what this all entails. And yeah, we're going to do some horoscopes too. So whether you're watching live or whether you are watching the replay of this on YouTube and or Periscope/Twitter, thank you. I appreciate it. You can follow me at I am Will Nicholls. I'm going to put a banner up at the bottom for all you guys. Let me just get this started here. Alrighty. So before we get into it, I just want to say we're already in Mars retrograde right now. Okay, we're already in it. It has begun. It has begun. And a lot of people, well, there's a lot, first of all, there's always a lot of taboo kind of topics and all of that right now, you know. Like a lot of people have a lot to say about Mars retrograde, but not very many people know what they're talking about. So even some astrologers I hear talk about Mars retrograde, I'm kind of like, oh man. Same with Venus retrogrades. They're very similar in that way. I'm just gonna go grab my charger and then we're gonna get started. So 1 second. Alrighty. So, as I was saying before, there's a lot of misinformation out there. All right, there's a lot of misinformation about Mars retrogrades, about I mean, all this stuff. Astrology, period. There's a lot of misinformation. So we're not going to go. I'm not going to challenge any of that information because all I'm going to say is be very mindful of who you're getting the information from, and how fearful it's sounding, and so on and so forth. So, you know, don't just listen to anybody talk about Mars retrograde or anybody talk about astrology. You have to know where it's coming from, what the source is, who's saying it. Is it actually an astrologer or is it just someone who has an opinion, an astrological opinion? You know, so we don't want to do that. We want to listen to who's talking, and then from there, I mean, this should just be common sense, but I feel like I have to keep reminding people of it just because there's so much garbage out there. So we're going to talk about the real facts. We're going to talk about the major transits. We're going to talk about what Mars retrograde period means, and then we're going to talk about this Mars retrograde here in 2020. Okay, so let me just share my screen here and we will begin. Okay. So let me just zoom in this. 100%. Can play this here. All right. So Mars retrograde in Aries, we're going to go over the general overview of what's occurring in this transit period now and over the next couple of months. And also we're going to talk about what some of the themes were like a few months ago, because the earliest when Mars went into shadow, I believe it was in July. So we're going to talk about that all the way until when Mars leaves its shadow and enters into its just forward motion. So Mars retrogrades in general really indicate where we're experiencing a surge of vitality, drive, energy, impulsivity, reactivity, where that's going to be placed in our lives. Okay, so a lot of people say retrogrades slow things down, and that's true, but only temporarily. Retrogrades just mean that the motion is being reversed. right? So that motion, instead of Mars normally being an outwardly expressive planet, it's not necessarily that he goes fully internally, although we'll talk about that when we discuss the horoscopes, because for some signs, it is going to be like that. But for others, and as we kind of seen collectively with these heavy Mars squares that we're going to talk about very deeply with the cardinal energy. But how it impacts us all is going to be very unique. But Mars retrogrades in general will show us, depending on what house it occupies in your chart, it'll show you this surge of vitality, drive, energy, impulsivity, reactivity. Okay, so that's that Martian type of tendency. Okay, this is also going to amplify aggressiveness and sexual energy. Okay, Mars rules sexuality, right? Mars rules our vital life force energy. Mars rules aggressiveness and combativeness and reactivity. It rules drive. It rules your focus. Okay, and where and how that energy is expressed, how that sexual energy gets expressed, will show us based off of whatever sign Mars is retrograding through. So in this case, Mars is at home in Aries, which we'll discuss in a bit. But some common themes in Mars retrogrades are struggle, or a struggle for will, meaning that your will is challenged in many ways, which we'll talk about, and this will come up during this season, absolutely. But we'll also talk about how it can be accentuated too, where we have an over kind of domineering energy. This is going to be very true too with Mars retrograding in Aries. But in general, Mars retrogrades will show us where that struggle is, where that struggle lies. Okay, and then finally, Mars retrogrades will indicate a prioritization of how we are expending our sexual and creative and vital life force energy. So, in what ways is it being drained? In what areas? Well, that'll be looked at based on the sign that it's in, any transits that are occurring, right? Will show us a flavor of that. And it'll also show us where perhaps we need to put more energy into. And with Mars retrograde in Aries, we're going to see this emphasis of passion, will, drive, momentum, and sexuality really come forth, right? Huge emphasis of passion with Aries, right? It's following the passion, it's following our drive, it's following those impulses. Okay, and that's a that's a good thing, and it's a not so good thing, because you can see how that can be, emotionally volatile if we're not mature with it, right? Aries on the personality level, it wants to try and dominate and control the outer world, right? But the truth of Aries is that Aries is a leader, and Aries, being the leader, is the one who blazes the path for others. And that's what we can really see with Mars in Aries. Okay, Mars cardinal fire. Okay, so Aries is a cardinal sign, one of the 4 cardinal signs. So cardinal signs are initiatory energy. Okay, this is explorative, leading type of energy. Okay, it's also about change too. It's welcoming change when necessary and staying firm when necessary as well. This is in its home sign. Okay, and then the impulsive, explorative nature is also Aries, very much, right? Aries wants to go out and seek. Aries in the zodiac represents the initial will, the initial act of divine will, which is to go out and seek, to go after, and experience and express oneself through the attainment of one's desires. Okay. Another aspect here, again, with sexuality, is we have this emphasis of, with Mars and Aries, sexual energy, which is our sexual creative energy, right? So it's our Jing, our Kundalini, our life force energy, or chi. It's that type of energy. It's that arousal, because arousal is not always sexual, right? Arousal, you can be aroused. Another word for arousal is you're on edge, right? You get the goosebumps, right? When something feels either really good or doesn't feel that good. You know what I'm saying? So be mindful of that during this season. Mars and Aries transits, because this is a long Mars in Aries transit. It's about 6 months, right? It's about half the year. So that's a lot of a lot of time we're experiencing this Aries energy, and Mars in Aries. It's the full expression of our sexual creative life force energy. Okay, a big theme of this retrograde, which we'll talk about in a second, but a big theme of that is going to be, are you dictated by your own inner authority? Are you dictated by your own inner authority? Or are you being led by an outer authority? And we're going to see that those types of challenges come up a lot with the squares to Saturn and Pluto, and also Jupiter. And we'll talk about the differentials between the two. But main themes with Mars and Aries is to discover, to seek, and to lead. Okay, through passion, by the way, through passion, through impulse, through exploration, through the desire to lead. So Mars and Aries themes. Okay, Mars retrograde and Aries themes that are coming up, because everybody wants to know what does this mean for me? Right? What does this mean for me? Okay, so we're finding new ways to utilize our sexual creative energy. We're learning how to utilize it in a more perhaps dominant, upfront, raw way. We're working with hot energy here, right? Yang energy. There's an increase in heat and hot-headedness, and when we see this square to Saturn and with Jupiter, we see these forest fires that are breaking out now, right? So, and I feel like I remember seeing those photos on Twitter. I wonder if I can pull those up. Actually, I'm gonna pull those up so you guys can see them. But I remember seeing those images on Twitter of forest fires. Of just the red sky, right? Just the red sky in Oregon. It's just crazy. I'm gonna pull that up. That's Indonesia. I think this is. Let me just share the screen with you guys. Yeah, so like, do you see this? It's crazy, right? Like, it's nuts. Like, this looks like this is in Indonesia, but even then, like, just the red, it's crazy. Like, that's like where astrology becomes very literal. Okay, so that's where astrology becomes very literal, and mundane astrology is not bullshit at all, right? It's not bullshit at all. So, Mars retrograde in Aries themes. Okay, if we're finding new ways to utilize our sexual creative energy. That was what I was saying before too. Is like you got to know how to use it. You got to know how to work with it. You got to know what to do with it, because I feel like a lot of us are getting overwhelmed. This is why I'm such passionate about not just astrology but sexuality as a working domain too, because we're not taught how to use it. We're not taught how to experience it. We're not taught what to do. We're not taught about sexuality. We're barely given a sex ed, especially in the West. And Europe's a little bit more progressive in that sense, right? Europe's a little bit more progressive, but realistically, we're behind, and we gotta learn how to do that. How to deal with that energy, right? That's very, very important. Let me just get this up here so you guys can see me too. So again, increase in heat. We're seeing that physically, very physically on the planet, but we're also seeing that hot-headedness coming over, where you may find yourself feeling a little bit more impulsive, right? Reactive, circumstantial, when you see your circumstances getting a little bit more aggravated, aggression. These are all associated with Aries and Mars. Okay, Mars is the god of war, right? And Aries is the first. So there's that ego, the sun's exalted in Aries. There's that inflation of ego that can come out with Aries. And that's not always a good thing. Sometimes it's a good thing because it's important to stick up for yourself, and Mars and Aries can give us that extra push to stick up for ourselves, to really, put a little bit more emphasis on recognizing our own importance and why it's important for us to stick up for ourselves, why it's important to put ourselves first. That's where Mars and Aries really comes through positively. But then obviously there's negative repercussions for that being a little too over influenced by that as well, right? We don't want that. So sexual relationships, desire, which is a big part of sexual and intimate relationships, our inner drive. All right. How are we using our drive? How are we using our sex energy? Right? Quarantine. Have you been wasting it all on porn, or have you been channeling it into creative projects? Right? These are a lot of the themes that we're addressing. What is getting in the way of us expressing our vital life force energy to the max? Right? Look at your diet, look at your lifestyle, look at not just the physical food that you're consuming, but the mental food that you're consuming, with the media that you're listening to, the music that you're listening to. This is really a time to be very mindful about the power of consumption over this period, because there's a element of indulgence. Whenever we're dealing with fire signs, there's an element of overindulgence, getting a little too hot, right? Getting a little burnt. So, and a big aspect too, like I said, is that energy expenditure. How are you expending your energy? How are you expressing your energy? Are you doing so in a positive way? Or are you doing so where it's too hot for people to handle, right? Where a little too much ego is involved. All right. So a big theme with Mars retrograde in Saturn, just very quickly, and which is a big part of this retrograde, and we'll go into details when we look at the charts, but is learning to trust our inner authority, okay, which may or may not involve challenging outer authority, okay? So that's the thing. With Mars and Aries, it's about learning how to lead. And you lead by first being in control of your mind. That's why the esoteric or soul-centered ruler of Aries is Mercury, okay? The phrase associated with Aries is, I come forth and from the plane of mind I rule, meaning that when you are the master of your own mind, that is the true rulership. That's the true exaltation of divinity that comes through. Okay, it's not about controlling others. And that's a big theme with Aries, Mars and Aries, especially within our relationships, our sexual relationships, and in our intimate relationships. It's not about controlling others. And it's also not about being overly giving our energy to others in a way that perhaps isn't healthy. It's about learning how to give our energy in a way that's positive, learning how to give our energy to others and share it in a way that's conscious and makes sense. Okay. Not just because I'm reacting to a certain experience, right? Not just giving my energy to someone because the sex is good, but giving my energy to someone because they're benefiting my life in some way and I'm benefiting their life in some way, right? Beyond sex, intimately. And same thing with the creative projects. Are you doing things because you want to truly do them, or are you doing things because, well, that's just what you think you should be doing, for the money, for the dollars, for the dineros, for the shekels, for the gold pieces, the silver bullion. Another big theme of this Mars retrograde is learning how to lean into the discomfort. Okay, the discomfort of letting go of certain situations which have been sucking our energy, which have been, and which have been we've been guided to burn away in many regards. Right, Mars in Aries, like I said, he's the trailblazer. Right, Mars in Aries is the trailblazer. He's burning through. Right, oh, you can't get through all this brush? No worries. We'll send out Mars and Aries ahead. He'll just burn it all down and clear a path for us. That's the power of Mars and Aries, is being able to clear the path for others, because he knows where to go. He knows what to do. He knows how much heat to give it. Not too much heat that will burn down the whole damn forest, but just enough heat that will carve out the path in front of us so that we all can walk it. And that's that leader aspect of Mars and Aries too, which is a very, very important point to understand when we're dealing with this Mars retrograde cycle. Okay, it's really about allowing for a deeper connection to our inner warrior, our inner leader, our inner visionary, to guide us forward, and knowing what velocity or what temperature we're burning at. That's a very important thing to know, a very important thing to recognize. Okay, and finally, I can't see because my camera's in the way there. We are awakening our confidence, igniting our purpose, and we're really ultimately expanding into our passions, right? That's this whole point with Mars squaring Jupiter is we're like, hey, we have a lot of opportunity for passion, right? There's a lot of opportunity for passion here. There's a lot of opportunity to give our energy, awareness, and intention to new things, new people, new situations, new experiences, right? But we have to be aware of the patterns. We have to be aware of the patterns that are preventing us from expending our energy in the most conscious way. And this is where, a lot of people think X has just come up on Venus retrogrades. Hell no. Hell no. Mars retrograde season is always the season where, you're feeling a little lonely. Someone's feeling a little lonely, right? Maybe a little horny, hasn't gotten laid in a little while. Hey, I've got that ex that, still has a thing for me, or I got that ex that's pretty cute and attractive, and, we're not on terrible terms, so maybe they'll be down for little fucky sucky. Ha 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 ha. So you got to be mindful of it. Like I said, you got to be very mindful and guarded of who, what, when, where, and why you're giving your attention. Okay, all of the above. Whether it's media, whether it's relationships, whether it's yourself, whether it's a certain part of your life, we have to be very, very careful of how we're giving our energy to, especially the sexual relationships, but also the creative relationships, the creative dynamics, the creative partnerships, the creative projects, right? How are we giving our energy? And is it in a healthy way? Or is it in a way that's not that good, or not that great for us, right? Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so the main important transits that we're going to talk about, and we're going to look up at the charts for, okay, is Mars retrograde, squaring Jupiter, squaring Saturn, squaring Pluto, all in Capricorn. Okay, that's been these are big transits this season. Okay, and then obviously Mars stationing, right, retrograde and direct. Just stationed retrograde, will station direct in November. And then also Pluto and Saturn stationing direct, because again, they're getting ready to square off with Mars. Okay, so these are what we're going to talk about. Then we'll get into some brief horoscopes for all of you guys. Okay, so first and foremost, let's take a look at Mars enters its shadow period. Okay, here's the thing. Whenever we're going through a retrograde cycle, okay, shadow, for those who don't know, for those who are new to astrology, okay, shadow period is just the spot that Mars will go direct at after it's gone retrograde. Okay, so Mars, as we can see in the picture right now, is direct. Mars is going forward, so Mars is going to go 15 degrees and 16 degrees and 17 degrees and so on and so forth. Okay, around the 28, I think it's 28 degrees that Mars heads retrograde at, stations retrograde. Stations retrograde, yeah, 28 degrees, right? Almost exactly. So at that time when Mars stations retrograde, Mars will retrograde all the way back to this spot, 15 degrees and 14 minutes, I believe, or 13 minutes. And so that's what all that happens after Mars hits 15 degrees and starts progressing forward is very important. Why? Because Mars is going to go back over those same transits. Now, some transits will be different, right? For example, right now, as you can see in this chart, Venus is still in Gemini, right? Venus is now in Leo, and Venus will be going direct the whole time. So the Mars's transits with Venus will be different. Mars's transits with Mercury will be different. Okay, and the Sun, and so on and so forth. So a lot of them will be different. However, we do have these aspects to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn that Mars will make that will be revisited. So the themes that are present here are revealing to some of the lessons and some of the experiences that we will be going through, and what themes are going to be coming up. Okay, as you can see here, Mars is opposite Juno. Okay, so there, like I said, there's going to be a lot of that around sexuality, around our sexual drive, around our sexual relationships. These are all going to be common themes that are going to be coming up for us. Okay, Mars is pretty close to Chiron, so there is still that aspect there. So we still have that theme of Mars is, and as Mars is in its shadow, Mars will pass over, or sorry, Mars will come, like, leave a bit and then come back. So there's a lot of aspects that are being made throughout the pre-shadow up until the retrograde too. The biggest is the one that we're going to look at next, which is Mars square Saturn the first time, and then we'll look at Mars stations retrograde. But Mars squaring Saturn is Mars squaring Saturn. This is one of the first major transits that Mars makes. Okay, but Mars also hits Jupiter and Pluto during that time too. Okay, so what does this all mean? Okay, with Mars squaring Saturn, there is this deep energy of challenging the authority. And as you can see with the protests, the riots, everything that's going on, there's a lot of challenging authority. There's a lot of challenging the mainstream narrative as well. Okay, so I don't just mean the whole Black Lives Matter riots and all of that as a means of challenging authority, but I also mean a lot of the people that are experiencing a greater awakening of consciousness, a greater understanding of the whole reality of this matrix that we're living in. A lot of those people are challenging the authority, the authoritative regimes that are going on right now. A lot of these practices are very socialist, communist practices that are taking away many of our freedoms. So we see this kind of fight for freedom with Mars squaring Saturn, right? Mars and granddad, right? It's like Mars and grandfather, right? So Mars is Aries, right, the god of war, and Saturn is Kronos, the god of time, or the titan of time. So there is this kind of, there's the mutual understanding with Mars and Saturn is that they're seen as malefics, okay, in traditional astrology, but that doesn't mean they get along just because they're malefic, right? Malefics actually don't always get along, and as we can see, if you do study traditional astrology, you'll know with sect and day and night, Mars is in the on the night team, or the night team of the sect light, and Saturn is on the day. So there's that difference right away. But and Mars is, by the way, hot, really, really hot, and Saturn is seen as usually very cold. So that kind of clashes. Mars wants to just burn, 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 and Saturn wants to. They say, hey, 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 cool it down, man, cool it down, right? So there's that resistance. Obviously, those are going in opposite directions, and they're also squaring each other. And as we know, in squares, it's this clashing, it's this combativeness that occurs. And who's got a little bit more power here? Well, this is a tough one, because the whole, like, Saturn is at home and Mars is at home, right? Mars is at home, but we got also Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn. Okay. Now, Mars does have this nice trine to the south node, but that doesn't always mean a good thing, especially when we're looking at the south node, right? We're really, like, Mars trining the south node. I guess he gets that extra little bit of fire, but then there's also so much of this squaring that Mars has kind of been like, Mars has been through a few battles there already with Pluto, right? And Jupiter at fall, I should say, too. Jupiter at fall square Mars overpowers it. So Jupiter just kind of carries the weight of Mars's kind of initiation, leader, passionate, reactivity, volatile energy. So Jupiter will just expand that, as we'll talk about with Jupiter square Mars when Jupiter goes direct. But Mars squaring Saturn, especially the first time here on August 24th, that's really about, again, learning how to create the inner authority and when to respect the inner authority. Okay. And sometimes it takes us kind of feeling out of control in our circumstances, as we've kind of seen, but one of the benefits of all of this kind of craziness and bullshit that's going on in the world right now is that a lot of people are learning how to become their own authority, learning they don't need to rely on the government, learning that they don't need to rely on others or on Big Brother to tell you what to do, right? And also learning the truth of following your own inner guidance. All right. And Saturn gives a lot of this is a lot of powerful building energy, right? Like we have a lot of opportunity to look at what is being built right now. Again, the creative projects, this is a very, very important time. Mars is sextiling the North Node as well, okay, during that time. And that's really bringing in a lot of more visionary type of energy. Aries is a leader, and Gemini is in many ways the communicator and the organizer of thoughts, okay? Whereas Virgo is the organizer of matter and being able to take thoughts and bring them into matter. So when we have the North Node and Gemini aspecting Mars, the nodes, both of them are aspecting Mars in different ways. A nice trine to the South Node and a sextile to the North Node. We there's a lot of added energy that Mars gets, and here is really what we see as breaking up a lot of the kind of karmic conditioning and learning how to rise into the occasion or break free from the mainstream narrative, the mainstream norm, right? Break free from that Saturn in Cap authority, right? That is perhaps controlling us, has a little bit more power on Mars, is winning the struggle a little bit, right? But then as Mars comes back, Mars has like a second opportunity to go, face that. And we've got a second opportunity to face our fears, to face our own inner authority. So if you've been kind of submitting to the outer authority, you've been putting your power to the media, to what's out there, there's a chance to allow that to come back inward, right? To allow that inner authority to come back to you. And that's really what it's all about. It's not about letting yourself be a victim to everything, and it's also not about being this like overly control freak on everything, because there is a certain point where we do have to kind of let go of the reins a little bit, right? But we can't necessarily, we can directly control the experiences around us, but it seems like we can't. But we can always control, and this is true, because there are certain situations where in the moment your only mechanism of control is for you to control your own reaction. And you will find as you control your own reaction, your circumstances do change. The outer environments, the world, the situations, the people, all of that, it will change. Okay. So this is really being put to the test, though, I have to say, right? It's really being put to the test. So Mars stations retrograde. Okay, that was on September 9th. And here, this is very, very important. Again, Mars and Juno have been going pretty hand in hand up until this point, and Mars finishes or starts its retrograde back, and it'll make an exact opposition with Juno right away. Okay, why is this important? Juno rules relationships. Juno rules long-term commitments. Juno rules our connectedness to relationships, right? How committed are we to our relationships? In many ways, it rules devotion as well. So, and more or less a conscious or contract type of devotion, not so much this free flowing, choosy devotion, if that makes sense. So with that opposition, we can really expect a lot more, a lot of themes to be brought up in our relationships, a lot of insecurities, right? Juno in Libra, it's such a huge focus on relationships, and with Mars opposite that, we're going to experience the kind of challenges of commitment, the challenges of committing to someone, committing to something, and as you can see, these three oppositions that are crossing are Mars and Juno, right? The Sun and Neptune, right? Just a few days. This is a few days before, and then Chiron and Mercury. Okay. So what does this all mean for Mars retrograde? Well, these are the influences that are going to be absorbed, that are going to, this is what kind of starts us off or triggers the initial impulse here. And as you can see, the North Node is also making a trine to Juno as well, who is in that opposition. And by the way, Juno's squaring Saturn too. So there's a lot of emphasis around our karmic purpose, our dharmic path with relationships at this time. So this is where we'll see relationships. We'll have to be a little bit perhaps more assertive in certain areas and in certain relationships that we have. Bring a little bit more of that kind of focused, driven energy. If you've been feeling like, oh, I've been drifting away from my partner, it's like, okay, well, it's time to say I'm either all in, I'm committed, or I'm not. These are the kind of hard choices that we're having to make. And with the sun opposite Neptune, beginning that opposition as Mars stations retrograde, it's really important to focus on both the details, but also the big picture, right? Following your heart, but also looking at the details, right? It's like, it doesn't matter how much you love a person. If they want kids and you don't, or vice versa, it's not going to work out logistically. You can love them, but it doesn't mean they have to be with them, right? And same with Chiron opposite Mercury. It's really learning how to heal the aspect of our of the way in which we're communicating, right? Are you holding back with Mercury and Libra, right? Are you holding back from saying what needs to be said based off of wounds? Like maybe you've been holding back even saying something like "I love you" more often because of past wounds. You're afraid of abandonment or whatever, right? So then you don't say it because they want. What if they don't say it back? What if they don't mean it? I don't know where they were at, etc. Right? There's also an opportunity to really look at analyzing your own self and your own relationships for what they are, right? And looking back at past relationships, right? What's still lingering within you? That's really what that Chiron and Mercury opposition creates. It's like, what patterns, programs are still lingering within you in regards to sexuality, creativity, and your relationships, Mercury and Libra. Okay. So yeah, but that North Node trine to Juno is actually very interesting, because as Juno's going through this intense square with Saturn, saying, look at it realistically, and then opposite Mars saying, are you going to follow passion? Are you going to follow your heart and your momentum? Or are you going to submit to the fear, right? That's what Saturn brings up. It's like, are you going to submit to this fear, or are you going to conquer it? And Mars opposite Juno is like, there's no other way but to conquer it. Okay. But how that ends up, right? How we end up, that's going to be very dependent on the situation. Okay. But I am seeing with this North Node aspect to Juno, we're going to be seeing a lot of this kind of these themes around our purpose and how our relationships are with our purpose. And we may be experiencing some relationships, that divine relationships that come into our life, that really can tell us more about our purpose and more about who we are, and is this person the right one for me? Is this my soulmate? I hear that one all the time as a sex and intimacy coach. So yeah, the major themes, though, as we can see, are really, where are we expending our energy, and is it worth it? Like, is it worth it to expend that amount of energy? Is it worth it to be giving energy in this way to the people in our lives, or the projects in our lives, and so on and so forth? Okay. So this is actually not the first Jupiter square Mars, I don't think. No, it's definitely not. It's a second. So that was a mistake on the title or whatever. Um, but okay. Again, Jupiter. Oh my gosh, this is 2019. This is the wrong chart for that. So, anyways, we'll look at Saturn direct, because this is where, as Saturn's moving direct. By the way, look at that. Look at that. That's nasty on the 29th. That's not too far away. It's not too far away on the 29th. That's where we really are looking at the energy, especially the energy that we're expending into our relationships. Okay? Like, where is it? Is it in the right place? Is it in the right path? Or are we giving too much energy in the wrong place? A lot of this has to do with too, like, are you putting your mission, your divine purpose first, or are you putting your relationship with someone else first? And this is especially for men. If you're not putting your relationship, if you're putting your relationship above your purpose, you will crumble. But if you are on your purpose and you're committed to your purpose, okay, you're on your purpose, you're committed to your purpose, and your relationship just happens to be a part of that, that's what it's all about, right? It's you, your purpose, and then your partner, and then your family, and then your relationship, right? So you have to be putting yourself first, and that's really where, like, Mars, this square with Saturn and then with Pluto. First, Saturn is saying, what are you holding on to? What are you holding on to? Right? Maybe it's these beliefs about love. Maybe it's these beliefs about your energy being expressed in a certain way, or how people receive. Maybe you've been told that you're too much. Maybe you've been told that you're a lot to handle. And you don't know if your partner can continue to do that, or because you've been feeling a little distanced. It's like, oh no, is something wrong? So you have to look at, again, are you giving your attention and energy to the things that are binding you, right? Like your beliefs, like your limiting beliefs, your fears, the illusions, or are you giving your attention and energy to the things that bring more of what you desire, to the things that bring more satisfaction, more energy, more momentum to your life, that bring you that sense of passion? That's really what Mars retrograde is all about. Right. As we can see here too, on the day that Saturn goes direct. So not only is Saturn starting to go in that direct forward motion again, okay, 25 degrees Capricorn, okay, as you can see, Mars is in a nice little grand trine, South Node, and Venus. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, there's so, like, fire, the element of fire is transformative energy. It takes us from one state to the other. Okay. Fire is what takes us from one form to the next. Okay. Heat, right? Heat changes things on a molecular level. Okay. Changes things on an energetic level. The energy, or the initiation of fire, is a very powerful initiation that births us back into our true nature by burning away all the excess. So with Mars trining Venus, there's so much passion. There's so much passionate energy, right? Venus in Leo is about just exuding your radiance, exuding your love, the love for passions, the love for things, the love for people, the love for attention, right? And with Mars and Aries, it's about giving that passion, right? Giving that passion. But with Mars retrograde in Aries, it's about giving that passion in the right directions, right? In the right directions, in the right way. And with the South Node in Sagittarius, it's really taking a look at, what is the greater vision here? Am I putting that energy in a position that is a great investment for myself? And relationships are investments. Okay. It's not always about what is, a lot of people, when they hear me say that relationships are investments, they say, well, relationships shouldn't be, what can you do for me? No, but they should be to some extent, right? But it should be, is the energy in and the energy out, does it make sense? Is it a win-win? That's what we want, right? It's not expecting 10%, 50%, 100% returns. It's just knowing that, is my investment growing? Is this benefiting me? Or is this falling? Is this going downhill? Right? In the long term, we're playing in the long-term game when we play with sex and relationships and that type of energy, right? So this is really about that long-term vision. and it's also giving us a lot more creative energy to perhaps alter that and change that in some ways. That's what South Node in Sagittarius is all about. It gives us an opportunity to change the direction, change our one-pointedness, right? Moving from this way, we're like, hey, all my attention has been over here, right? Maybe I've been putting too much attention on trying to get girls instead of not enough attention on building up myself. Maybe I've been putting too much time and energy wallowing about my past relationship, about my breakup, blah, 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 blah. Or, maybe I've been putting too much energy on my relationship, right? So it's all about energy expenditure and knowing when you're getting a little too caught up in the flow, in the momentum, in getting too carried away by passion, because that's possible, right? It's very possible to get too carried away by passion. Or are you utilizing and following passion to ultimately assist you in becoming your own authority, allowing your own passion and radiance and exuberance to flow through, and ultimately use your energy in a conscious way? Okay. Then in October, I'll touch on this in the next podcast as well when we do Libra season. But in October, Pluto goes direct. Okay, Pluto going direct. Hey. Okay. Pluto going direct is a good thing. Okay, it's a good thing because once Pluto goes direct, it'll finally be off of my sun. Shout out to the 20 to 25 degree cardinal signs. I know it's been a lot of pressure this year. A lot of pressure this year, but that pressure is being relieved towards really the end of the year, unfortunately. But it starts to be relieved once Pluto passes over the middle of that. So I'll be happy once Pluto leaves my damn sun. But Pluto going direct is just really allowing. It's like we've had this buildup, right? With Mars retrograde, it's this buildup of saying, where is my energy being expended? Where am I putting my focus? Where am I following my passions? Where is that energy going? And with Saturn saying, what's sucking my energy? What's controlling my energy? What's limiting my energy? What is putting what is locking my energy up? What is locking me up? What is tensing me up? Right? And where can I rearrange that? Where can I allow that to change? And then Pluto finally going direct. It's like, okay, now that you've seen everything that you need to do, it's time to do it. It's time for that change, that shift to actually take place. It's time for that to actually begin. The theory's there. We started the momentum, blah, blah, blah. But now it's time to actually allow that to be actualized, allow that to begin. Okay. And then exactly 5 days later, 120 hours to the minute, Mars squares Pluto. So exactly 5 days. Now, I've been studying astrology for a long time, and I haven't seen something like that crazy in a while. Okay. I haven't seen something that crazy in a long time. Like exactly. I was literally going by minute, right? Minute by minute, and it's exact. Okay. So first of all, that's wild. But what does that mean? Okay. Mars squaring Pluto, that's that time. This is that time for, these big shifts to take place, to really occur. And at the exact same time, Mars is trining the South Node and sextiling the North Node again. Okay. This is big. This is very big. And the reason that it's big is because it is truly, a once in a every 30 plus year type of opportunity that we're being given. It's like, can you acknowledge what needs to change, even if it's hard, even if it's challenging, even if it's going to hurt? Can you acknowledge what needs to change? Can you acknowledge where you need to be mindful of your own energy and where you're expending that energy? And can you allow for that expansion? Because it is an expansion. It seems like things are being taken from us. It seems like things are being rearranged in a way that is like, whoa, where's this going? I'm not sure. For some people, it'll feel like everything's being taken away. Other people will be like, everything's going for a loop or changing or shifting. can we look at it from a conscious perspective and utilize that instead of getting overwhelmed by that, instead of looking at all the things that are going wrong or looking at all the areas that are taking things away from us, right? Can we see where more space is being made for us to refine our vision, right? This aspect of the nodes, refine our vision and choose the path that is laid out in front of us. All right, that's what this is all about. Then we have Mars square Jupiter exact again. Look at that, 10 days later. Okay. Again, after that initial, meeting with Pluto, again, we have this opportunity, right? We have this because there's no obstacles. It's just opportunities. So when I say opportunity, it means opportunity. It means there may be obstacles, right? For most of us, there will be. Some of them will be external. Others will be internal, right? Interpersonal. So again, we'll get into some of the specifics of that when we talk about the horoscopes. But with Mars square Jupiter exact, and Venus is making a trine to Pluto during that. Okay, that's pretty important too. Uranus is also opposite Juno and Mercury in Scorpio. So while this is going on, we're giving so much energy to what do I need to do to expand? Okay. And with that Uranus opposition to Juno and Mercury, it's like, hey, you know what you need to do to expand? Look deep within you. Look deep within you and your relationships and what's occurring in your life and how you've related to relationships. And if you're single and you keep hearing me say relationships, understand that whenever you have dated someone, you have that residual relationship energy with you. And every relationship that you have, you carry with you your parental relationships forward, that conditioning response. So when I talk about the relationships, it's the relationship that you have to yourself. Okay, it's a relationship that you have to yourself. And how can you come to know that in a deeper capacity? How can you come to witness that and pay witness to that? And there may be some long-term changes that occur around this time. But mostly it's going to be, the opportunity is evolve or get lost. That's it. It's like you either recalibrate, you evolve and say, okay, something needs to change. Let's change it. Or you say, this is just not working, right? And I wish you on your way. And you say that not just to relationships, but you say that to your beliefs. Okay. See, that's when it turns around and you say, I wish you on your way. That sounds so negative. Is it though? Is that negative when you think of your limiting beliefs towards relationships, towards sexuality, towards commitment, towards partnerships, towards intimacy? When they're preventing you from experiencing the very thing that you want most? So we have to understand that too, especially when we're approaching transits from an astrological point of view. We have to understand that there's no such thing as a bad transit. There are challenging transits and there are empowering and uplifting transits, but all of them provide us with an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn, an opportunity to excel. Okay, and that's what astrology is all about: empowerment, not disempowerment or being cursed by the cosmos, right? And then finally, Mars goes direct on November 13th. Okay, as you can see, Juno's making a very powerful aspect to Neptune. So Juno's made some very powerful aspects to the outer planets, to very significant placements during this season, just this Mars retrograde period. And then when we have Mars too going direct again, well, I mean, just think about the summary of all of this energy, right? think about the summary of all that energy. What is this coming down to? What does this come down to? By the time we get to November, right, the focus is very much about illuminating our own awareness on the things that are really requiring us to change them, right? Again, going back to repeat everything that I've said before, that is talking about your energy expenditure. That's talking about how you're expressing yourself. That's talking about, like, what are you doing? What are you doing wrong? Where is the energy not good? Where is the energy good? Where is the sex good and where is the sex not so good? Where are you putting too much emphasis, too much energy on, and where are you putting not enough emphasis, not enough energy on? All right. So let's get into I just want to do a brief explanation for some of the like how all of the rising signs will experience these types of transits. Okay, so we'll start with Aries risings. So Aries risings, having Mars retrograde your first house, this and having Mars in your first house for like 4+ months. This is really about where have you been directing your own perceptions towards yourself. Okay, this is really has a lot to do with self. It has a lot to do with you and your own drive for yourself. So maybe, if you've been feeling like this year, because this year has been a tough year as an Aries rising with the Saturn Pluto conjunction in the 10th house, hey, with Jupiter there at fall, if it's been feeling like it's just been a very challenging year for you, or it's been a year that has kind of really tested you in many ways, okay, this Mars retrograde for Aries risings is going to really bring about an opportunity for you to really shift, right? Shift an octave of your identity, of who you believe you are and what you believe you're capable of. So this period will have a lot to do with relationships, right? With Juno transiting through your 7th and 8th house. A lot to do with the depth of which you experience relationships, and also having to do with who am I? What do I want? What do I desire? What do I desire for myself? Right? What kind of name do I want to leave on this world? What impact do I want to have on this world? Right? These are big things that are coming through this year with the Saturn Pluto conjunction in the 10th house, right? It's like what has been preventing me from success? What has been preventing me from thriving at my highest capacity? And how can I make a shift to that? And with Mars in the first house, where you're seeing that energy be directed towards is the self. So this is a time to focus on self. This is a time to focus on your identity of who you are and spend more time with yourself. Spend more time prioritizing yourself. Spend more time looking at what are the things that you desire and beginning to go after them. Okay. Taurus risings. Okay. Having Mars in the 12th house, Mars retrograde in the 12th house. This is really about learning how to overcome the inner barriers that you have created for yourself, right? Learning how to overcome the fears that you may have towards your impulses and desires. Maybe you're afraid of going after the things that you desire. Having a 12th house Aries, that's usually a lot of impulsivity when it comes to kind of partying, sex, that type of stuff. So you got to be mindful of again where you're expending your energy. Also about negativity with the 12th house. Got to be aware of negativity. And this is a really big, like, this period for Aries risings is going to be about who am I? Where is my personal energy being directed towards myself? Is it in a negative way or is it in a positive way? And with Taurus risings, it's learning how to unlearn a lot of the negative aspects of how you've been presenting your energy, and also learning how to let go of those points of energy drainage that you're experiencing. And a lot of that has to do with Taurus risings, with holding on to the past. Okay. Gemini risings. So going back to Taurus rising quickly. Taurus rising, this theme is again, it's about letting yourself be led through the journey of exploring the inner depths of your being. So whereas Aries rising is about exploring the personality, it's about exploring who am I as a self. With Taurus rising, it's about exploring what do I believe about myself? What do I believe to be true about myself? And what do I believe to be true about myself that isn't true about myself? And how can I unlearn that? Right? Saturn, Pluto in the ninth house. How can I unlearn a lot of the things that I've been taught? And how can I relearn the important things as Taurus rising? Right? Gemini risings, 11th house. Mars retrograde is in your 11th house. Okay. This is about when it comes to where is my energy being expended towards, being mindful of what your network and your friend group. Okay. So really looking at, hey, what is taking away, are these people in my network where I want to be? Do they lift me up? Do they elevate me? Do they bring me to higher heights? Is this does my network, does my friend group allow me to express my passion in the highest capacity? Right? Does it allow me to express my passion? With North Node in your first house as Gemini rising too. This is really about and making those aspects, right, to your first and seventh house. Mars is. This is really about again, when you can tune into the people with which you surround yourself with, and whether or not they're a positive impact on yourself and your psyche and your self-esteem and your image of yourself, or whether they're a negative impact, and just being able to be honest with yourself about that. Okay, so this theme is really about learning how to also challenge your own sexuality, like challenging because there may be some impulses as Gemini risings to want to abuse your sexuality. All right, and instead really take this time to uh, channel it, cultivate it. Use it, channel it in other areas, because there's so much creative and passionate energy being brought to your network, right? To help you expand out. So, don't waste it away on sex right now, Gemini rising specifically. Do not waste it away on just sex. Utilize it through your creative projects, the things that you're working on. Okay. Cancer risings. Cancer risings, another cardinal ascended, right? Meaning they got the cardinal angles. So it's been an interesting year for you, Cancer risings, right? A lot of relationship themes, probably some breakups or breakdowns as a Cancer rising, with that seventh house Saturn Pluto conjunction and Jupiter's there. Probably lots of amazing positive experiences too, but only in a deep evolutionary growth type of way. So with Mars retrograding in the 10th house, this is really learning how to give a little bit less focus to the relationships and putting a little bit more focus on yourself, which is, I know it can be a challenge for you, Cancer rising. So learning how to put more energy on yourself and what you're building, because Mars in your 10th house is giving you so much drive and momentum to get going on those projects, get going on your dreams, your passions, right? Follow that and make something of yourself through that. Okay. And with that, seventh house Cancer risings, my goodness, this year it must be so transformative when it comes to relationships for you guys, right? So again, that will not ease up until pretty much the end the end of the year. So but 2021 will be a lot better for you guys. Trust me on that. It'll still be very deeply transformative. The transformation never stops, and as much as I hate to use that word, it's very important that we understand what is occurring astrologically right now and how that's impacting our lives. And as a Cancer rising, as most cardinal risings, uh, you know, there hasn't been any sort of year that has created this much growth than any other year in the past. Okay, so do not take that lightly when I say that, especially when it comes to relationships and the paradigm that you have around relationships, the paradigm that you may have held based off of your conditioning towards relationships. These are all things that are being challenged, and Mars is really going to challenge you to put that energy into your passion projects, the things, the way in which you are of service to humanity and the world, as opposed to just serving in your relationships. Leo risings. Mars is retrograding in your ninth house, which means that Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto are all in your sixth house. Okay, so Leo risings, this Mars retrograde is really about learning how to learn, learning how to learn, and this is a great time to be taking up new projects to learn about, new things, right? Things that perhaps you haven't maybe thought about. Like maybe you just had this idea in the back of your mind that you're like, I don't really know if I should try it, but I really like it. Do it. This is a good season for it. Even though Mars is retrograde and making those squares to the sixth house stuff, right? As long as you take care of the body, which is very important, obviously, to stay healthy and to stay right, especially those knees. As Leo risings, watch your knees. Capricorn rules the knees. Saturn in the sixth house can have some knee problems, especially with Pluto too. So watch your knees. Be very mindful about posture, and yeah, like use this time if you haven't already over the last little while, but up until November and beyond, to use this time to just own, following or trying a new hobby, following a new passion, uh, learning, more, but learning not just for you, but learning to be able to one day share and teach, right, through embodiment, right? Sixth house, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. It's really about learning how to uh, redefine embodiment and what that means. Walk in the talk. Virgo risings. All right. Eighth house, Mars retrograde. Again, really much. This is another area specifically about sexual transmutation. Okay. Eighth house is very much about the transmutative aspect of sexuality, whereas fifth house is more of the expressive, impulsive types of sexuality or sex affairs and stuff like that. So eighth house, Mars in the eighth house in Aries, that retrograde, especially aspecting the fifth house too, of with Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto. This is really about this is a huge emphasis around sexuality for you guys, absolutely, more than relationships even, with Virgo, because having Mars in the eighth house, that really shows in what way are you kind of escaping through sexuality as opposed to being more present. And with Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto, I'm sure that this year has been a really has really brought in light to how to properly utilize your creative energy, right? Your and tap into that creative essence. And if it hasn't, then it's probably been a little bit of a struggle, I would imagine, right? Because that's really what Saturn, Pluto conjunct in your fifth house this year has been majorly revolving around, is taking the raw energy of your sexual vital life force and channeling it and putting it into the things that you love the most, right? Maybe that is relationships and sex, but hopefully that's other creative aspects too. So Virgo risings, really be on the lookout for learning how to properly move your energy, right? uh, Less sex, more meditation this time, but also feel free to explore the realm of sex, but make it a meditative practice as opposed to a goal-oriented practice. Okay. Scorpio rising, sixth house Mars and Aries, with the third house Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto conjunction. All right, this year has been probably a very physically exhausting year, and this Mars retrograde will ultimately allow you to put a lot more attention on the physical, which it may have seemed like in kind of up in the clouds. Also with Uranus transiting the seventh house, really redefining relationships has been a big state of importance for you this year too. Really looking at more of a long-term setting on relationships. And is it going to work out or is it not? I know a few people that have Scorpio risings that have gotten divorces this year, and do I think that they needed divorces? Not all of them. I think a lot of them could have worked through some of their shit and gotten over that. But some of them, yeah, and that's just part of the way that Uranus works. Is it's divine order, even though it kind of seems like chaos. So, but relationships this year for you Scorpio risings has been a real revolutionary task. It's requiring a lot of your energy. So, this Mars retrograde will allow you to give a lot more energy and time to your body. So it's a great time to start working out, great time to hit the gym and really take care of the body. Because when your body's at peak energy, your cortisol levels go down, stress levels go down. And with Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter in the third house, this is really about restructuring the way in which you communicate with yourself, right? Communicate with yourself and others, right? It's learning how to tell the truth and not white lies. It's learning how to own your desires and own the ways in which you desire to express yourself, right? That's what this is all about. But use this time to really focus in on the body. Sag risings with a fifth house Mars, second house Cancer, or second house Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. So this, Mars in the fifth house will be given a lot of extra sexual energy, which is good because, having Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto in the second house, this is a great year for kind of letting go of the old paradigms that you've had towards wealth, towards your resources, towards even what you believe that you're worthy of receiving and experiencing. And simultaneously utilizing your creative energy for a higher purpose. So this is really where you have to be mindful, my Sag rising friends, of not getting too overwhelmed by the increase of your sex drive. Okay. And saying, what can I do with this? Right. Similar to Virgo risings, having the eighth house Mars and fifth house Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. Again, Virgo rising is going to be more focused on the transmutation, where Sag risings, you may have to be having more sex, to get that out. So sexuality is going to be a big theme for you guys, but it's also about creativity, because sex and creative energy are the same. They're one and the same. Okay. And with the second house Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto, again, it's like this whole year has been about dismantling your beliefs towards money, towards authority, towards who's in charge of, giving a paycheck. I imagine that a lot of Sag risings really went full-time entrepreneur this year, and if you haven't, maybe it's something to think about, Capricorn risings. Okay, Capricorn risings, fourth house Mars, again, cardinal signs. I think I skipped over Libra risings. I totally skipped over Libra risings. I'm sorry, Libra risings. I'm gonna have to go back to Libra risings right now. Libra rising, seventh house Mars, fourth house Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. Okay, Mars in Libra, and then with the Juno aspects in Libra too, in your first house. This is really like relationships take the hold, but so does how you're perceived by yourself and how you're perceived by the world, right? With Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto in your fourth house. This is really about connecting back with the foundation. So remember when I was saying that with that Mars square Saturn, Mars square Pluto, it's giving us an opportunity to look at what's holding us back. And then with Mars square Pluto and Mars square Jupiter, it's really allowing us to release into that, expand into that, the new state of who we are. Okay. So with Libra risings, very specifically, this is about learning how to take a look at the parental dynamics, right? The conditioning that you've had towards relationships and partnerships based off of how you've been raised, and then from that place, learning how to uh, say goodbye to that. Letting that go and being okay, and that means like I could see Libra risings as this Mars retrograde being a real big time to reparent yourself. If you still have that residual trauma or work to do that requires you to, forgive yourself, forgive your parents for not giving you everything that you need and desire. Well, let this time be that for you. Okay. And again, big theme around giving too much in relationships. So let that emphasis be more or less on you. Okay. Okay, back to Capricorn risings. Since I skipped the poor Libra risings, we love you. My brother's a Libra rising. My good friend's a Libra rising. I love Libra risings. So it is my apologies. But Capricorn risings, this has also been a very intense year. You and Cancer risings, I think, have had it the worst. However, Aries and Libra risings didn't get off scot-free either. And anybody with cardinal placements, really. Because it's been it's been an interesting year for all of us, but cardinal risings have been getting the shit out of the stick for a lot of the year. But you can take those opportunities, like I said, with any transit. It's about taking the opportunities for what they are, learning from it, and doing something with it. And no one's better at that than cardinal signs. So Capricorn risings with this Mars retrograde transiting your fourth house, and with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter all in the first house this year, this is really again, instead of the shift between letting go of the relationship stuff, you know, the parental conditioning towards your relationships, like I was saying with Libra risings, with Capricorn risings, it's learning how to let go of any of the aggression that you still have towards your upbringing, your conditioning, your childhood, and learning how to uh, observe in what ways that has really influenced your perspective of self, and in what ways that has perhaps negatively influenced your perspective of self, and then this retrograde period will allow you to kind of revisit that, reestablish a clearer sense of self, because that's really what this whole year has been. It's about self-identity for Capricorn risings, absolutely, and letting go of a lot of the old kind of beliefs that you may have had towards yourself. Okay. Aquarius risings, Mars in the third house, Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto conjunction in the 12th house. This has been a big year of undoing to a lot of the deep programs. Just like the fourth house, the 12th house is also our deep, deep, deep subconscious. Fourth house, though, is more about the stuff that the baggage that we kind of experience coming here. Whereas the 12th house can also be past life karma, other lifetimes karma, generational karma. So fourth house is not just your upbringing, but it's very linked to maternal stuff, whereas the 12th house is linked to generational as well. So we have that with Mars retrograding in the third house, is learning to find expression through the crazy psychedelic kind of journey that you Aquarius risings have been on this year with Saturn, Pluto conjunct in the 12th house, right? It's like all of the things that you believe that you're letting go of, and all the old patterns and paradigms and blocks and limits that you put on yourself that you're letting go of. How can you utilize what you have learned and express that in a way? In many ways, Aquarius risings are here to lead and here to bring us closer to one another. And with Mars in the third house, that's giving you so much mental energy. So with that passion, it's really about putting that in your mental flow in a healthy way, as opposed to, you don't want to get caught up in the negative emotions, right? Or the limiting emotions that may come up and arise for you over this time. And that square from the third house to the 12th is interesting, because that's really going to bring up a lot of the correlations between mind and intuition. What's true, right? I made a tweet today, and I said, what is the emotion that you're feeling? Is that your intuition, or is that uh, your trauma, right? Basically, or is that your conditioned trauma response to your environment? And I think that's a very important question to ask my Aquarius risings. Is what you're going through, is the internal struggle that you're experiencing, or are the negative emotions that you have been experiencing that have been coming up and that you've been probably working with, or maybe you've been getting overwhelmed by, is that is that your intuition telling you something, or is that your pain body reacting in some way that requires more of your attention, right? And then Pisces rising, my beautiful Pisces rising, that's me. Mars in the second house. Hey, this has a lot to do with getting the resources right. I have to say, I've been feeling pretty blessed with Mars in the second house. Uh, and Mars in the second house will be he'll be going retrograde right on my Venus actually, which is conjunct my Sun in Aries. So that and that's to me it's been a really big focus on putting all of our energy not into resources but into creating more for others and not just physical money, because not all of us are in the I don't necessarily help people make more money. I help people get more connected with their sexuality, their relationships, and themselves. And I mean, and the ironic aspect of that, I guess I do help people make more money, because when you're connected with that, you do make more money. People with higher sex drives and people who exude that sexual creative energy and know how to cultivate their energy, those are generally the people that are very financially successful as well. So that's something actually that's interesting to come out. But for us Pisces risings, having our 11th house filled with Capricorn with Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, all conjunct there, it's been really a year about being very, very particular about who we're letting into our network and letting go. Like, I know this year I unfollowed a shit ton of people, so many people, and not because I didn't like them or that I didn't care for them or anything like that, but just because I want my network, I want my close, tight network to be filled with people that I can rely on, and that they can rely on me. And when it's too big, it's just not possible. So I want to be able to give people my 100 because they deserve my 100 and I want their 100. And so that's been a really big theme for us Pisces rising, is learning how to say no, to people, old people that want to hang out and stuff like that. It's like, no, I actually don't want to hang out. It doesn't mean that you're not a good person. It just means that, hey, I'm very mindful of my energy, And then with Mars transiting the second house, this retrograde cycle will have a lot to do with how you've been spending your resources. So be mindful not to be spending every dollar you have. I know with Aries in the second house, there can be a lot of money comes in just as quickly as it comes out, right? So and Pisces rising, they're always, we're always buying shit that makes us feel good too, emotionally. So, but yeah, so that's a little sum up of what you can all experience throughout the Mars in Aries, Mars retrograde in Aries season. Thanks for tuning in. It was a pleasure to do this. A pleasure to talk about this. And don't forget to like and subscribe here on YouTube, or if you follow me on Periscope, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, or follow me on Instagram and or Twitter at I am Will Nicholls. If you want to explore your own astrology or get a synastry and or composite chart done, make sure you go to iamwillnichols.com. You can book a reading with me. And you can also check out my podcast, Mindful Moment Podcast, which is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the video podcast is available on YouTube as well. So always a pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. You guys rock. And yeah, I will be back for the Libra season podcast. I'm also going to be recording a few epic podcasts with some epic people and be bringing more content to you through there. But make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter for more daily day-to-day interactions. And if you're tired of your sexuality and you're a man, you're tired of your sexuality being overrun and attacked by people, and you're ready to become sexually strong, sexually focused, and master your sexuality, meaning you last longer in bed, right? You can please your woman for hours. Don't have to deal with those petty sexual problems like premature ejaculation or any of that bullshit. If you want to up-level your sex life and you're ready to step into your sexual power, your true sexual essence as a man, send me a DM Brotherhood on Instagram or Twitter, and I'll get back to you with a few questions to see if you qualify. If you do, I'd love to invite you to the Brotherhood, where a few amazing men are committing to the path of sexual mastery, committing to being more conscious embodiments of the divine life force which flows through us all. All right. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in once again. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Have a good one.